I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities via a number of different modalities. This show is obviously one of them. We also have a Facebook group dedicated to like-minded people committed to spiritual growth and transformation, and would love to have you join us there. We can be found at liveauthentically.today/FB. I'm also super pumped that I guess this is last year now, but I released my first book on Amazon. It's called SOAR, SOAR, and shows how I partnered with the universe to create my new reality. I am super excited that on today's show with me today, I have Nathanael Garrett Novosel. Good morning.
Good to speak with you. Good to speak with everyone on Facebook.
Yeah, super excited to have you here. Lots and lots of good content today. But before we dive into everything about you, and I'm super excited to hear about your book, I like to start my shows off with the same question. And that question is, how do you live authentically every day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm an interesting person to ask that question to, because I don't even think I asked myself that question for, I don't know, 20, 30 years. I live my life basically trying to be the best person I can for other people. So, and we'll get into this later, but my dad disappeared when I was 5. And so my mother looked really, really stressed. So I had what I jokingly call perfect child syndrome and try to be the perfect kid and get good grades and don't, cause any trouble. We were poor. So like, don't ask for anything, try to live every single moment as the best human being possible, the most well-behaved child ever. And I lived that, and I lived the life that I thought that everybody thought was good, right? Like
Yeah.
lived the ethics that everyone said was the right way to live, got the job that everyone said I should have, did everything in the way that I thought that I was supposed to live. And I can tell you that no matter how hard you try, you cannot please everybody. I just like every time, every little thing, anything little thing I would mistakenly do wrong. I mean, people would just come on me, down on me 10 times harder than everybody else. And I'm
Mhm.
just like, this is terrible. I'm trying to do exactly what you want me to do. And every time I make even a fraction of a mistake, you just go absolutely bananas on me. And I just realized, I was like, this isn't worth it, man. It's just not worth it.
Mhm.
So living authentically is being true to yourself, caring about what you care about, doing what you want to do,
Yeah.
living life on your terms, and not trying to, please everybody and do what other people expect of you. I mean, yeah, you got to follow the rules of society and try to live in harmony with everybody. But man, if you bend over backwards for other people, you're just going to be miserable, and they're going to treat you like garbage, and they're going to be miserable and think that you're a tool. So be true to yourself. Try to do what you want to do and what you love to do in life as much as you can, and that will guide you toward what you think is a good and life worth living.
I love that answer. Super deep. Was there a pivot point? Was there a particular aha moment or pivot point where you just said, I'm done living this way. I need to make a shift?
Man, there were plenty. I
Yep.
mean, I'm one of the luckiest people ever. The job I got out of college was the job I was actually meant for, and it was accidental. I wasn't looking for it. So I graduated from college. I had a degree in finance with minors in psychology and management information systems. So I joke I knew money, people, and computers. So I had the trifecta.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And then I joined a research and advisory firm. And it turns out that all you have to do to be good in that field is to learn and to teach. And then I kept telling myself I was going to go get an MBA or something and do all this other stuff with my life. And I just woke up one day and realized, oh my God, I'm doing what I like to do. I like to learn. I like to teach. That's what I'm doing 24/7. Like this is great. And I get paid well to do it. This is wonderful. So I kind of accidentally fell into that. So there are times in my life where I've kind of stumbled upon those things. But the ones that really hit me as to like, man, this isn't worth it, is just I just noticed I would try to do everything right and I'd get yelled at. Like I played football in high school, and anytime I did anything even remotely wrong, they would just come down hard on me. Oh, you Novosel ruined it for everybody. I'm like, what? I'm trying to be the best person here I can be and try to behave, properly. And it's just like I'm just like exhausted after. It's just like I'm so tired and tired of getting yelled at, tired of all this stuff. Even though I'm trying to do everything right, and you try to please other people, you loan people money and then they don't give it back to you, and then they don't think they have to, and you think that's the right thing to do, but you also think that the right thing for them to do is to pay you back, and then they're like, well, I don't have to pay you back, and it's like what? And it's just like there's just so many times when you could just sacrifice your own well-being for someone else and then have them not return it and then think that you don't deserve it, to where you suddenly realize that you're living the life the wrong way, that this is just everyone, they want you to live that way because they want you to please them, they want you to benefit them, they basically want you to do whatever makes them happy. But if you're miserable and it's never enough for them, then why are you doing it?
Yeah, exactly. So, what are some emotions or feelings or some barometers that people can start to kind of watch for to assess whether or not they are living an authentic life?
Well, that actually gets to my book. So a little bit of background, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are 8 concepts to how human beings find their life to be meaningful or significant. The fifth one, if I can do my math right, is let's see, come on, growth, experience, desire, belief, yeah, emotions. So is emotions, and emotions are life's feedback mechanism. So they are telling you your relationship to growth, relationship,
Mhm.
your current state and your velocity. So, like for example, just give you some examples. If you are happy, then you are growing, right? If you had a sandwich and you're happy because you ate the sandwich, well, that's a signal that you're growing because you're gonna, grow as a result of eating that food, right? You go for a run and then you get that endorphin high. Oh, look, you're growing. You're going to be stronger next time, right? So that's an example. Another example is excitement, right? That's the anticipation of a growth enabling event or a happy event. Like if you got concert tickets and it's gonna be life changing experience or whatever, then you're excited for it because you're
Mhm.
prepared for the growth. So that's the direction of the growth, is that you're going to be having a good experience. But what's great about it is emotions are a mathematical formula, and it's as scientific as you can get with something fluffy like psychology. uh, and the formula for any emotional state is this: emotions equal desire plus belief plus experience. And
Okay.
any emotion you have, assuming you're a normally functioning person, I mean, you could argue that if you have some sort of like chemical imbalance or something, that'd be the experience causing it and nothing else, and that's fine. That would still, the formula still holds. But let's just assume a normally emotionally healthy person, desire plus belief plus experience. Let's take an example like jealousy, my
Mhm.
favorite one because it's the easiest one to get. You want a person or thing, that's the desire. You believe that you deserve it, that person or thing, and more importantly, you believe that the person who might have it instead of you doesn't deserve it. That's
Mhm.
what really gets the jealousy going. And then your experience is seeing that person with that thing or person that you think you have and you think that they don't deserve. And when
Okay.
you put those 3 things together, what happens? You get jealous, right? And
Yeah.
you can tell that you can change your emotions just by changing one of those 3 things, because if you believe that that person deserved it, then you wouldn't feel jealousy anymore. You would feel what? You'd feel admiration.
Mhm.
So just the change in the belief changes your emotional state from jealousy to admiration, just that one belief change. So my point being, we said, how do you know, what are the indicators of that these are happening? The answer is that your emotional state is your feedback mechanism telling you what's going on. And so in my case, in that example of like trying to please people and then getting yelled at anyway, my emotional state of being like miserable or angry or whatever you want to call it is a thing that I wanted to make other people happy, but I also want to be happy as well.
Mhm.
I believed that what I was doing was going to do it, and it did not. But I also believed that I was doing that for them, and if they're not happy with it, then why did I do it? And then
Mhm.
the experience, of course, of me getting yelled at, and me feeling bad. So it's those things that are indicating to me, hey, whatever I'm doing, not working. So that's the answer to your question about the feedback and how you know.
Yeah, that's a great indicator.
Mhm.
So I'd love to continue the discussion on your book because I am just so intrigued by that, and I think that that's just such a brilliant concept and such substance and depth and richness there. First of all, excuse me, I'd love to have you say to our viewers and listeners the title of your book and where they can find it.
Sure. So the book is called The Meaning of Life: A Guide to Finding Your Life's Purpose. It looks like a fluffy self-help book with the cover, but I promise you, it's actually a an evolutionary psychology book, and it's really a detailed scientific look at how humans derive meaning in their lives. And the reason why I wrote the book, I have this thing my entire career and my entire life. I've seen things that exist the way that they are. And once I master a topic or know everything I need to know about a topic, then I look at the ways that people are typically coming to understand what I know. And I go, I could do that better. I could
Mhm.
write that better. And so I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of philosophy books, religious texts, self-help books, everything in between. And I'm just like, well, there's no book that's trying to, because every book has a target audience. And I was like, well, there are two audiences, right? There's the like atheist, skeptic, science-based people, and then there's like the spiritual people or the religious people and so forth. And obviously, you'd have to pick one if you wanted to like be a bestseller in a certain category. But I said, nah, I'm going to try to take a shot at creating a universal theory of meaning, so that whether you believe in God or not, whether you are a science skeptic or you're a spiritual person, that there are actually universal principles to finding meaning in your life that literally any human being of any belief system would actually have to concede based on the scientific evidence were true. And so that's what I wrote down. And then, most importantly, I also had a problem with the fact that most books either assume a goal or they recommend specific ethics you should hold. And I had a problem with both of those because you determine your own goal. And yeah, of course, if you say, hey, I want to make a lot of money, and then go read a book about making money, then that's fine. But if there's someone coming off like, oh, here's the universal secret to the universe and reality and everything, and then they tell you, well, here's how to make money or something, then they're kind of prescribing a goal for you, and that's wrong in my opinion.
Mhm.
The ethics side is another one where it's like, well, if the best way to live is this way, and I talk a lot about ethics. It's an 80-page chapter. It's pretty brutal, but it talks a lot about how ethics form and why you even have ethics and what they even do. And it concludes that there are no such things as universal ethics. There are near universal ethics that are built into us biologically, and I can talk about that. But there's no like absolute moral. There are no moral absolutes in the world that never change and are there for eternity. And so I didn't want to recommend or push my ethics onto anybody. And a lot of books do. They say, well, thou shalt do this or thou shalt do that. And if you don't do it, you're a bad person. I'm like, I'm not going to write that. I'm gonna explain how ethics work and then let you derive your own ethics. But I'm not going to tell you what those ethics are. So those were the principles on which the book were written. It's a scientific analysis of the 8 things that drive humans' perception of meaning in their lives, and it's meant to be universal. It respects the religious and the spiritual. I do not make an opinion on it. I just ask people to set it aside, so we don't talk about it, so that we can talk about what we can agree on, whether you believe or not. And for the skeptics out there, I say, hey, look, a lot of the stuff that you think is I don't know what you could mumbo jumbo or fluffy or whatever. Actually, there is legitimacy behind it, and here's the scientific evidence that shows that you do need belief, you do need faith, you do need these things, and whether you believe in something that is different from someone else is fine, but you do have to believe. You can't not believe and have a successful, meaningful life. You just can't. And what do you mean by believe? Believe in positive outcomes is how I refer to it, to get away from the spiritual or the religious for people who are allergic to that kind of stuff. But everyone is looking to achieve positive outcomes, and you have to have faith that positive outcomes will come, even if the evidence in front of you is showing you the complete opposite, or else you can't feel like your life has a point. So that's the little bit of the reasoning behind the book, but it's just such a cool insight and insightful analysis around how you can find or inject more meaning into your life.
Love that. And I do have the 8 sections written down here, and I'd love to take a deeper dive into some of them.
Mhm,
One of them, let's spend a little more time talking about ethics. Let's take a
mhm,
deeper dive there because I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit more.
mhm,
Are there any behaviors or actions or characteristics that you would consider to be bad? I mean,
mhm,
are there any concepts, any ideas that you take a very black and white stance on?
mhm. Sure. So, the near universal ethics I identify in the book, there are three of them. It's fairness, reciprocity, and minimal harm. Minimal harm to things you care about, but I just shorten it to minimal harm.
Yeah.
Now, why are those the three near universal ethics? The reason why is because as social species, and I talk about evolution and how single-celled organism and blah blah blah. I won't bore everybody with that. But the short version of that is that living organisms evolved following rules to seek growth and avoid harm. As they put it in psychology, seek pleasure, avoid pain. That's taking one step back. It's a seek growth and avoid harm. And so all living organisms are doing that. And they're following rules. They're not consciously deciding I'm going to follow these rules, but the ones that caused them to survive stuck with them, and the ones that killed them they're dead now, so they don't have them. So evolution created these rules.
Yeah.
Now, what they found is that cooperation between living organisms led you to have a greater probability of survival, and
Mhm.
so therefore social animals evolved because living cooperatively with other animals made you more likely to survive. And
Mhm.
and how do you be social? You cannot be social. You cannot take another two organisms that are separate and have distinct behavior, agency, if you will. And you cannot cooperate with them unless you trust them. You don't trust them, you're not going to live with them. And the only way to build trust, fairness, reciprocity, minimal harm. Those are the three things you need. Fairness is like if you all go and hunt for food and then you bring it back, that you all share in the hunt based on who hunted, right? So
Yeah.
that's fair, right? Reciprocity is if I am not going to harm you, you are in response not going to harm me. Because if
Mhm.
I don't harm you and then you harm me, well, now the reciprocity has been broken. Now I can't trust you anymore. Now we can't be cooperative. And then minimal harm is, obviously minimal harm to yourself is a core ethic, of course, because you value your own life. But
Yeah.
again, as a social species, you have to minimize harm for the people who are in your group, right?
Mhm.
And the group keeps getting bigger, by the way. A lot of people have this whole like societal thing, and then now they're applying ethics to animals and so forth. And we'll see how far they can take it. Can you start applying to plants? It's like, well, you can't eat rocks. So at some point, living organisms have to consume other living organisms. It's just kind of a fact of life. So at some point that's gonna you're gonna run into a wall there. But people are expanding that circle of what fits in the realm of ethics. And
Mhm.
that's why I said I'm not telling people what to do with that. You can, I'm telling you how it works. You can figure out your conclusions you draw from it. But to your point about universal, are there any like this is wrong? It's based on the rules you set and then whether you violate them. That's how it works. But those three are the near universal because if you violate them, you can't be social. You cannot have a relationship with someone else.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
And super fascinating. Thank you.
Mhm.
Let's see, where do I want to go next? So many
Yeah.
sections. I could spend hours talking about this stuff.
Yeah, and please interrupt me if I'm going on too long. Just
Oh no,
cut me
not at
off.
all. We're good. No, I love this stuff. Let's talk about let's talk about choice. Your section on choice.
Hmm.
And I'll just kind of open it up to you to kind of explain it and
Sure.
maybe give the viewers and listeners some things to think about.
Sure. Well, there are two things. There's a pragmatic reason why that's last, and that's, of course, any self-help book or philosophy book or whatever book that you want to have be practical. You want to leave doing something differently. And there are only two things you can do differently coming out of any kind of new insight is you decide differently or you act differently, right? And those are
Yeah.
two sides of the same thing, right? You
Yeah.
decide to act, right? And so that's probably why it's at the end, really. But the in terms of meaning, in terms of why choice is critical to meaning, is if now imagine if you've ever seen Clockwork Orange, you know where the guy is like strapped into the thing and his eyes are peeled back and he has to watch all these horrible things happen in front of him.
Yeah.
That's life without choice. And as you can see, he's being tortured.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
life without choice is torture. So
Mhm.
slavery is bad. Being strapped in and staring at things bad. These are things we can all agree are bad. And the reason why is because you remove someone's agency to do what they want with their lives. And
Mhm.
I know a lot of people think that they want everything to just be magical and happy and wonderful and have no problems ever, but that's they don't realize what they're really asking for is actually going to hurt them. Like, let's take for example, like, oh, I just wish that the world was this way and everything acted in this exact way. Well, the
Mhm.
only reason why they want it to act in that way is because they believe that that's right for them. But if it's not right for someone else, you just switched from like, oh, I help everybody and everything's magical to oppression because you're forcing someone to live a way that you think is right.
Mhm.
And that's where things get a little dicey. And that's where the ethics get a little dicey. But we're not talking about ethics, so I'll move on. The choice side is that at the end of the day, you want the freedom to decide how to live your life. And if you don't have that freedom, so what's the point? Why? Like, it's just like you're living on a one of those monorails or whatever, just kind of going through life as a spectator or as a passive participant. So if you don't make decisions, if you don't have agency, you feel like this is stupid. Like, why am I even here?
Mhm.
And that's why it's so critical to your meaning is to have the agency, to have the choice, to actually be able to impact the world. I mean, there's this there's this comic who said there's this comic she said that someone just jumped up one day and, as a heckler and just screamed like I'm here or something. And I just thought that was so fascinating because her point was she had this realization that some people just want to be heard. Some people just want to feel like they have an impact on the world. And that's why they were heckling her. And it wasn't because they're bad people or because she's was doing bad.
Yeah.
And I just like that hit me. Sarah Silverman, who said that was her story.
Okay.
And that hit me. I was like, yeah, that's right. It's that people want to feel like they have an impact on the world. And so the ability, the way you have an impact on anything is through your choices. And if you don't make them, they will be made for you. They are being made for you. It's people, other people are telling you what to do. Other people are telling you how to live. And if you don't exert your own personal freedom and agency, then you're just going to be at the mercy of everything else. And you're not going to be happy. Yeah.
Right. Right. And I think I love to dive into this concept because I just think the concept of choice is so fascinating. I talk
Mm-hmm.
about it a lot in the context of spirituality, and it's a journey of making the unconscious conscious, right? It's about moving out of that autopilot mode and just doing things the way that you think you should be doing them or society tells you should be doing them, and really making conscious choices and asking yourself, running it through the filter of, is this right for me? Does this feel like it's in alignment with who I am? Right? How does this make me feel? Right? Centering, anchoring on those emotions. And I think that I know that's when my life really started to shift is when I started to consciously choose things, right? Start to
Mm-hmm.
question more, go deeper and ask myself, like, is this right for me? Is this in alignment? Is this in integrity with who I am, et cetera?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's a big piece of even, my angle is the spirituality piece of it, not necessarily religion, but the spiritual journey of awakening, right? Of making that unconscious conscious. And choice is a big piece of that. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that as I've made that shift, as the needle has moved from unconscious to conscious, it starts to make me feel more empowered, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing that I do have the ability to make choices that are best for me. And yeah, sometimes it's just easier to placate other people, but that's not the way there. I mean, that's not, we talked about that earlier, just the people pleasing and just accepting what comes your way. I mean, really standing in your power and assertively communicating to other people, this is what's best for me, and just trusting the process and just allowing everything to kind of shake out where it's supposed to be and not forcing connections and just kind of flowing with the direction life is taking us, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I think that that is so important. And I always encourage people that I talk to, my clients, et cetera, to start to think through, look at your life through more conscious lenses.
Yeah. And I have this the most empowering message I have in the entire book because I'm trying not to be too fluffy, but you got to be fluffy enough so that people can feel like it's uplifting and so forth. And I end it with the most powerful message. I actually write, which is a very popular saying in the self-help world, but I write it in very pragmatic terms. I say you create your own reality. But I don't say it in a law of attraction way or any kind of like, think things and they'll magically happen. Although, you're welcome to believe that. I'm not saying one way or the other. But what I am saying in the book is say reality is three things. Reality, there are three definitions of reality, at least in the context of meaning of life. One is physical reality like gravity and that kind of physics and so forth, and that's uncontrollable, right? You can't change the nature of gravity. You can fight it and you can manipulate it and so forth, but you can't like physically. We can't just make it half pressure on the Earth, for example.
Right.
Then there's societal norms, and those are malleable, right? That's what I call malleable reality, which is laws and social structures and how houses are built or whatever. I mean, that's just half that stuff's just arbitrary, right? Like, oh, I think we should do it this way. Okay, like if you ever heard the story of like why the railroad is a certain width and it goes all the way back to chariot times where the horse's butt was this far and then two horses' butts were this wide and then
Oh,
that's why the chariots were this wide and so now that's why railroads are that wide is
I
because
did
of two
not know
horses'
that.
butts. Yes, the width of two horses' butts dictates how wide trains are. Like it's insane, right? It's absolutely crazy
Right.
how some things just exist because of reasons. No
Yep.
no rhyme or reason, just kind of is. So that stuff is malleable. You can change laws, you can change rules, you can change how you do things. And then there's a third definition of reality, which is your perception of the world around you. And you
Mhm.
have complete control over that. You can believe in anything. You can see the world in any way that you want. And so when I say you create your own reality, you can control those latter two things. You have almost complete control. I mean, obviously you have to work with other people on the social stuff, but you almost have complete control over. You have complete control over the third one. You have a lot of control over the second. I mean, if you don't like the social rules, for example, you can move to a place where you like them, right? So
Mhm.
you can move, you can control that's within your control. And then even the like stuff you can't control, like the weather or the climate, it's like, well, you actually can make decisions to mitigate the risk of those uncontrollable factors. Like if you like warm weather, you can move south, like if you live in cold weather. You can, if you don't like, rain, you can build a house. If you don't like, earthquakes, you can get insurance or you can move away from them. Like you
Mhm.
control the uncontrollable by controlling yourself. So
Mhm.
you really do control your entire reality through the choices you make every day about how you perceive the world, how you control your own actions, how you influence the malleable reality around you, the laws and all that other stuff. And then you mitigate the risk of the things you can't control by doing what you can control and minimizing the impact or risk of those uncontrollable factors from happening. And if you do that, you really control your life and your destiny.
Right, right. And your human experience, right? Your
Exactly.
emotions, everything stems from that.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite? Obviously, we just talked about the end of the book, the most
Mhm.
powerful section of the book that you leave your readers with. But
Mhm.
that aside, do you have a favorite section of the book? I know they all
Uh,
kind of all the parts work together, but is there a particular
yeah.
chapter
I
you like?
mean, my favorite one is emotions because I feel like now that I know the formula for how emotions are derived, I feel like it's obvious that everyone should know it. But every time someone hears it, they go, "Oh my God, I never thought of it." Like that's amazing. Yeah, really, it's desire plus belief plus experience. Like wow, if something bad happens in my reality, but I didn't want it in the first place, I don't care. But if I did want it, I do care. Oh my God, like it's just like it like hits people like a ton of bricks. So that's probably my favorite. But just to kind of get answer that question with a new one of the items, belief was the one that changed me the most. The belief chapter. Because I came full circle, and just to give you my little bit of background on me, I was raised. I think I was Methodist before I have any memory because my father wanted me to be Methodist and then I left and then okay, so that was Catholic. Um, and then I kind of went to atheism because it was like the smart, if you're I was kind of going the whole like what do smart people do? Oh well, smart people go into finance, which is why I'm a finance major. Oh, smart people do this, smart people do this. Oh, smart people are atheists, they're smarter than everyone else. It's like And don't believe me, I don't believe that anymore, but I just, but I have to admit it. So I was like, oh, look at me. I'm like an atheist. I'm smart. But I actually came full circle. I mean, if I were to describe myself today, it would be apatheist. If folks don't know what that is, that means that you just don't care, because like if it doesn't affect your actions or your decisions, then it doesn't matter. And I kind of landed there. But like I said, I kept it out of the book. But the thing that I realized writing the belief chapter fundamentally changed me, and it changed me at just a deep visceral level. Um, I grew up my entire life. I was a pessimist when I was a kid. I was like, it doesn't matter what I believe; it just matters what is, and no matter what I believe, it's not going to do anything. By the end of that belief chapter, I had completely changed 180 degrees on that position, because your beliefs influence your decisions and your actions. If you don't think you're going to win, so you don't compete, then you're definitely not going to win because you didn't compete, because you chose not to do it. So you have to believe. And I don't know where the line is. I talk about how you have to believe enough in positive outcomes where you keep moving forward toward them and keep working toward them. And again, if you believe that there are additional universal forces helping you, that's fine, and that's part of that too. But you can't jump off a cliff and flap your arms and believe you can fly and start flying. So I don't know where the line is. I don't. There's one extreme of, if you don't believe, you will guaranteed to fail and suck at life. If you believe too much, you might hurt yourself accidentally if you kind of believe things that aren't real,
Yeah.
but in the moment. But you have to have something. And when I realized, I was like, well, what's the definition of a belief that you hold in a positive outcome without evidence, or despite evidence, despite evidence to the contrary hitting you, because you have to have that to continue to move forward against adversity. And I was like, oh my God, the word for that is faith. And I went, oh crap, I've lived my entire life without faith. And here I am discovering that in the belief chapter, you have to have faith if you want to have meaning. I'm not saying you have to have faith in God. I'm not saying you have to have faith in a specific religion or anything like that. Although if you do, that's great. If that's how you get your faith, that's wonderful. But I am saying that you have to have faith.
Mhm.
If you want to live a fulfilled, meaningful life to the fullest, if you want to reach your full potential, you have to have faith. And that, I know I keep saying that. I'm telling myself that because I'm still struggling with it. Because I lived my entire life without it. I'm just like, I have to find some way to have this, because it's the only way to be successful. It's the only way to live actualized. And so anyone on there, if you have faith, please teach me how to have that, because I don't know, but I know you need it. And that changed my life. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And that's I echo that wholeheartedly. I mean, I talk a lot about this journey from stepping out of fear and into faith. And I have taken leaps of faith in my life. I stepped out of fear and said, you know what? I have no idea what tomorrow looks like. I have no idea what the future holds, but I know that this is the right decision. This feels like a soul aligned, heart centered decision. So I'm going to make it, and I'm just going to trust. And like I said, I don't have anything figured out, but I'm just going to trust and show up and allow the universe to fill in the pieces. I'm going to allow the universe to make the how happen. I just know, where I want to be. I'm making an aligned decision, and I don't have to have it all figured out. And it is amazing. It is like magic when you rely on faith, when you can just walk by faith. And I do every day. I mean, ever since I shifted into that mode, out of fear and into faith, it literally feels like magic. And now it's freer, I'm more carefree, and there's just a flow and an organicness. I'm no longer trying to force it. I'm no longer holding onto things that aren't meant for me. I'm no longer, resisting things that don't feel right. I just flow with it. And I always say too, anyone can do this in their own life. Like
Mm-hmm.
you said, if you want to live your most self-actualized life, you have to rely on faith. Because if I didn't, I would still be stuck in an unconscious fear-based reality, and I would have been miserable.
Mm-hmm.
But because I chose that leap of faith, greater things have opened up. And I always say anyone can do this. You just have to have the courage. You have to have the courage to take that leap of faith and just trust and
Yeah.
allow the events of your life to fold out, or unfold according to the divine timing, or according to whatever's meant for you, and just be in that allowing mode.
Yeah. And I'd love to hear your answer on this, because this is the question that I have, which is, when everything in reality seems to be against you on whatever it is you're trying to do, how on earth do you keep the faith long enough to overcome that sense of doom or dread, or there's no way in hell this is ever going to happen? What do you do, or how do you overcome such an overwhelming obstacle as current reality?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I love that you asked that. So I've been there before. That's like what you just described is what I call rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
We've all had our versions of rock bottom. And first of all, I have to say, to get through that, I believe that you have to already have a very deep sense of faith, something to cling on to, being okay with not knowing, and an understanding that, I'm a big proponent of, and I rely on momentum,
Mm-hmm.
thoughts having momentum, energy behind things. And the first thing I do to start to shift out of that place is to grab the closest thought of appreciation I can find. Even if it's not much, even if it's like, yeah, everything sucks right now, even if it's just, well, the sky is blue today, or I'm breathing, like that, that's simple, but just grab onto the closest thought of appreciation and then think of another one. And those thoughts, those positive thoughts, garner momentum. So I try to always shift into that gratitude mindset,
Mm-hmm.
and keep reminding myself that I have such limited knowledge and wisdom based on who I am in the physical world, my conscious mind, and that I believe there is a higher power. I believe the
Mm-hmm.
universe has the events of my life orchestrating behind the scenes for me, and I trust. I actually relish in the knowledge and the truth that I don't have to have all the answers. I let go of that need to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And that for me was a big shift. That was a big pivot point.
Yeah.
One of my rock bottom moments was when I lost a baby unexpectedly back in
Oh,
2005.
sorry.
And I thank you. And I didn't understand it at the time. I just said, I don't understand why this is going on, but I know this is part of my plan. Same when I got divorced and started in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
That too, I was like, I don't understand why this is going on, but I'm just going to continue to show up. And now it wasn't until like the last year or so that I've been able to put my story together. I mean, that took
Mm-hmm.
years, it took decades,
Yeah.
but I realized that at my first rock bottom moment when I was 31, when I lost the baby, I had to do some really, really deep soul searching. I was stripped to my core across the board, physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. But I didn't realize that that event was necessary to prompt my soul work. That's when I started, filling up my bottle, just kind of doing my work and going super deep. And the divorce was the other end of the spectrum. It was the event that uncorked my bottle. So it was like the universe was like, you have been spending so much time now, well over a decade, filling up your bottle, doing your soul work. It's time to share this, right? It's time to uncork the bottle and share this with the world. And so it isn't until now, like how many years later, when I tell my story, I'm finally able to look back and say, okay, I see how all the pieces of my life are starting to fit together. I'm starting to see that golden thread kind of running through this tapestry. But so for me, just not knowing, just showing up every day. That's all I still do. I just show up. I just show up with an open heart and an open mind and a commitment to growth and to service and connection and becoming a better version of myself every day. And I just trust that the right people are going to be put in my path at the right time.
That was beautiful. I'm trying not to tear up. I'm serious. I'm
Thank you.
try not to tear up on that one, but that was nice. What I try to calm myself down here. An example for on the scientific side, even science involves a little bit of what you might call faith or belief or whatever you want to call it, and people don't acknowledge that. Like the Richard Dawkins of the world. By the way, Richard Dawkins, smart guy, and a lot of his stuff is really legit, but he does make one fundamental flaw. I've seen his work, and he says, "Oh, science is based on facts and reality, and there's no things for belief." I'm like, what are you talking about? The scientific method involves two parts where belief is fundamentally built into the process. There's the initial one of making of stating a hypothesis at the very beginning, and then there's a conclusion you draw at the end of the process. Sorry, I did that backwards for the thing,
Okay.
but
Gotcha.
so a hypothesis is by definition a belief that you cannot have not proven yet. Yes, you are going to prove it through the scientific method, and that's what his point is, and that's fine. But you start the entire process of science is based on a belief that you
Yeah.
cannot prove yet, or you haven't proven yet. And then at the end of it, you take a leap of, well, I don't want to say leap of faith. I don't want to make it sound too fluffy, but at the end you conclude based on the evidence you have what you believe to be true. Based on it, you're concluding something, and you can't
Mhm.
prove it. You haven't proven if you only done like an N of 20 or something. Like there's no way that you're certain that that's true. I mean, yeah, there's certain things like the gravity and evolution and that kind of stuff where you can probably reasonably conclude it, but the hypothesis and conclusion parts of science are beliefs. That and I should have defined belief. Belief is anything that you assume to be true, and then and a subset of beliefs is knowledge, and knowledge is what you know to be true because you can prove it. But here's the thing about knowledge: everything that you aren't currently observing at the current present moment and time is a belief. So like, yeah, I know that the sun, I can see the sun. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I know it's there. But like once it goes away, technically you don't know whether it just started flying somewhere else. I mean, technically, I mean, you can use science and derive that the path of the Earth around the sun and so forth, but you have no idea whether an asteroid didn't come and knock the Earth off its orbit and the sun's going to be somewhere else tomorrow. You don't know that for a fact. You believe that because of science and your trajectory and everything, your conclusions, but you actually don't know. So knowledge is a very what you actually know is very small, and what you believe is very large is the point. And because beliefs are anything you assume to be true, knowledge is what you know to be true, and uh, what you know could be wrong tomorrow because something could have changed. And like, did you leave the, I don't know, stove on? Oh, of course I know I did not leave the stove on. Yeah, but what if someone broke into your house and turned it on and then left?
Mhm.
Then your knowledge is wrong. It's a belief. So that's the whole point about belief. That people who think that they don't believe anything are kind of silly, because everything you believe, unless you're observing it in the present moment, is a belief. No.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. Love this content. I could talk about this stuff all day. Let's wrap up quickly talking about growth. Growth is
Yeah.
the foundation of my practice. And I think somebody asked me recently what the most difficult thing about what I do is. And I said my response to that was seeing people not choose growth,
Mhm.
seeing people stay in their current reality when they're unhappy, miserable, etc. So I'd love to hear you talk about the idea of growth a little bit and why it's so important to bringing purpose and depth and meaning to our lives.
Yeah, and since we're wrapping up with this, let me just summarize the 8 things and how growth is the centerpiece of it.
Okay.
So the 8 things are the 8 chapters and the 8 concepts you have to know are growth, experience, desire, belief, emotions, ethics, support, and choice. So we talked about a lot of those already. So the short story of that is the meaning of life is growth. You grow through experience. You determine where to grow through your desires. You sustain your growth toward your outcomes through your beliefs. We talked about that through adversity. Your emotions are giving you feedback. We talked about that. Your ethics are the rules you follow to grow, maximize your own growth and minimize harm to other people. And that's necessary to do the next piece, which is support. Support is you can grow more when you cooperate with others than you could on your own. Like you couldn't build the pyramids by yourself, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then choice is the agency you have to make choices every day to achieve what you and focus on things you find to be meaningful. So just background for everybody who isn't familiar with the book.
Okay.
So growth is the first piece of it because it is the point. And a lot of people, I've gotten a lot of arguments on things like Quora and stuff on this when they say growth is the meaning of life, and they're like, you can't be sure about that. Yeah, I can I can absolutely 100% prove that growth is the meaning of life. And there are three, and and reason why you have to define it, right? There are 3 definitions of the meaning of life: the actual definition of life, there's the purpose of life, and then there's what makes life significant. And growth is the definition of fits those 3 things. There are other definitions. People say, oh, it's the overarching goal or final outcome and result. But the answer to that is there is no final outcome or result. Growth, by definition, you continue to grow forever until you're done, right? Until you die. And then even people who believe in afterlife, you're still growing after that, which is so you never stop. So there is no final outcome. So that's what people are arguing. Oh, there is no meaning in life. You're an idiot, Nate. It's like, no, you're changing the definition on me. The definition I'm using are these 3. The definition of life, if you go look in a dictionary, life is a weird definition, but the number one central component of life is growth. It says right there in the definition, life is defined by characteristics, blah, 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 including the ability to grow. Number one.
Right.
Two is the purpose and the point or the intent of life. All life intends to grow.
Mhm.
Like, well, and you can prove that. I mean, hell, Darwin proved this, right? He said survival of the fittest, right? But
Mhm.
why do you live? You don't live to just not die. I mean, scientists focus on the not doing the bad things, right? So, or not doing the negative things. So, yeah, you survive. But why do you survive? You survive to grow and thrive. So, it's the purpose of all life. Every living organism that exists to grow, reproduce, or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's there. And then the third one, the significance, all you have to do is look at any award that's ever been awarded in the history of humanity, any award that's been given, lifetime achievement awards, best actor, whatever. Why do you get the award? Well, you say, well, you get the award for the achievement. No, you don't. The achievement doesn't get the award. The person gets the award. So what does the person get the award for? For the person they became to achieve that goal, the
Mhm.
growth that they did to accomplish the feat that they're receiving the award for. Growth. So all humans intuitively know that growth is what makes your life significant. So those are the three definitions. It's objective, and there's no question about it that those that's the meaning of life. So people will mention like service and love and all these other things, and they are mentioned across the entire book. Support and emotions, they are part of it. And if you don't have them, you won't feel meaningful. So I could see why people would think that.
Yeah.
But growth is the point of life because you're continuously trying to grow, improve, have new experiences, and that is the point of everything. Yeah.
Love it. So, what do you have to say to people who are, because I talk to a lot of people, and again, no judgment, but
Mhm.
who are scared to take that step into
Yeah.
growth, right? Who are scared, and understandably so, because with growth comes a massive, potentially a massive amount of change,
Mhm.
right? So, what do you have to say to people who say, you know what, I'm not ready, I'm scared?
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know. I'm scared too. That's all I could say is I'm with you, man. I'm with you. It is scary because you can fail, and failure is a real thing. But as long I know this sounds kind of cliche, but as long as you keep going, you can't fail forever. There's no permanent failure. And again, if you believe in the afterlife, then death isn't even a failure, and you keep growing from there. So if you believe in an afterlife, then life is kind of more like a video game than it is a reality because it's like you die, you try again, right? Uh, but yeah, taking the shot. The only advice I can give that I think would have any value to anyone on that is that this is a Jim Carrey thing. Jim Carrey said, you could fail at doing what you don't love, so you might as well try to do what you do love. Because he was talking about how his father, I think, was an accountant or something, and he said he really liked something else. I forget what it was, but he said he actually got fired or laid off from being an accountant. And he said, and he was miserable being an accountant. So Jim Carrey, as a kid, was looking and going, "Wow, my father was miserable, and he still failed." Like, man. And then that's when he became a successful actor and comedian.
Mhm.
And so I would recommend that kind of viewpoint on it. It's like, yeah, yeah, sure, you can't fail. Who cares?
Mhm.
Does anyone care? No. Yeah, the only person who cares is you, thinking that other people are going to judge you. And
Yeah.
yeah, there are occasional failures in life, like the Chevy Chase show or something. I'm picking something silly that like it was clearly didn't work, and everyone makes fun of it. And yeah, but that the likelihood of that being you, where everybody for like decades later are going to remember that time you failed, is like nil. It's like almost nil. And even then, these are the only reason why those failures are so what's the word famous is because they were from people who were already successful. Like
Mhm.
Chevy Chase, if it was like the Bob Boberson show and no one knew who that was, no one would care about the failure. So like you have to realize that you can fail and who cares. B, that you could fail at doing something you don't like, so why not go after the thing that you actually care about? And then third, if you keep working at it, all you have to do is succeed one more time than you fail. Again, I know it's another cliche, but I think about it like if I'm selling my house or I'm doing this or doing that, it's like, look, everyone can think this is stupid. I just need one person to like the house to sell it, right? I can have 500 people not like it. I just need one person. That's all I need for me to be successful. So when you think about that, you just need that one success to feel good about it. It just makes it more digestible. So those would be my pieces of advice. But I'm not perfect, and I'm scared myself. So I'm not going to pretend to be flawless.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Well, this has been such an amazingly rich discussion today. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. Thank you, and thank you for sharing
sure.
your story. I'm still holding back tears on that one.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm able to talk about it openly because I think it's something that people need to hear. And hopefully they can take from it, and learn how they can look at their life, the experiences of their life, and accept and just flow with the direction and just trust. I mean, I walk by faith every single day. So I'm glad we had a chance to talk about that. If people would like to get in touch with you directly, what is the best way for them to do that?
Sure. So my website is yourmeaninginlife.com. I have social media handles. Most of them are at Life the Book. I think one is at the Meaning of Life book or something. So feel free to check those out. But then my book is on Amazon, The Meaning of Life, A Guide to Finding Your Life's Purpose. There are a lot of like Meaning of Life books, so you'll have to probably dig to find it unless you search for my name or whatever. But you'll find it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you so much, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. And to all of our viewers and listeners, I appreciate you. Time is a choice. You guys have heard me say that many times, and I'm grateful that you have chosen to be here to listen to all of the wisdom that Nate has had to share with us today. Again, would love to have you join us in my Facebook group, liveauthentically.today/FB, and check out the books when you are on Amazon next time, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks and have a great day.